Ladies and gentlemen, whatever day you clicked on this video, there are that many days, as in the thumbnail, remaining until March 10th, 2026. We're counting down. Why, you may ask? Well, this all has to do with this kid. That kid is Faustino Oro. They call him the Messi of chess. Faustino is trying to become the youngest grandmaster of all time. At the time that he became an international master, which is the second highest title in all of chess, he was the youngest to ever do it. He did it at like 10 years old, which is mind-blowing because think of any 10-year-old you know. You might have a 10-year-old yourself. Your relatives or friends might have a 10-year-old. You might have a younger sibling. You might be 10 years old. In which case, get back to work because you've got Faustino's record to break. Faustino is chasing the record of Abhimanyu Mishra, who became a grandmaster at 12 years old and 4 months, 25 days. And Faustino has until March 10th, 2026 to break this record, but he's already done 3 of the 4 things required. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly what he did. He just played in a tournament, just is relative. He played in a tournament, and he scored his second Grandmaster norm, which is a tournament performance above 2,600. You also have to have a rating of 2,500, which he already has. In fact, he was the youngest ever 2,500. Ever, counting the Magnuses and whoever else. In this video, I will show you some of the games that he played, and we will make periodic check-ins for how close he is to this. Basically, Faustino has to play a minimum 9-round tournament, and he has to score a minimum performance rating of 2,600. That's it. That's it. Something you and I have literally never done before. Literally, whoever watches this video and whoever made this video has never gotten a Grandmaster norm. I'll be very shocked if any of you did. So let's kick things off. In Faustino's first game of this tournament, he's playing Ilan Schneider. Argentinian player, just like Faustino, rated 2402. Fun fact about Ilan Schneider is he's not a baby, but he is also very young. He's also an Argentinian prodigy. He would be the biggest prodigy that Argentina ever had, except Faustino exists, which is kind of crazy. Faustino opened with e4, so you've got to beat somebody your own age, basically. Ilan played c5, which is the Sicilian defense. Faustino went knight f3. Faustino, by the way, extremely universal player. Plays d4, e4, knight f3, like all the time. Good positional skills. This game was a Najdorf Sicilian, one of the most common openings in all of chess. One of the most regal openings in all of chess. Basically, in the Najdorf, it's a major question of where black commits this pawn and where white commits some of their pieces. h3 is certainly a move, and h3 is designed to quickly play g4, oftentimes to put the bishop on g2, and white fights for the d5 square by kicking out the knight, and sometimes even starting an attack. Most commonly, here with black, people play the move e6, and that is exactly what Ilan does. He plays the move e6, and white plays the move g4. Black no longer commits the pawn to e5, instead opting to play more in the center and not allowing white to go here, because they see that white is going to play the move g5 and kick out the knight. Actually, Ilan plays knight fd7 anyway. He anticipates the move g5, he brings the knight back to d7, and Faustino just trudges straight forward with g5 anyway, which is a very, very funny move. You look at this move, you're like, I don't get it. There's no knight to attack anymore. Well, the thing is, he's not playing moves just for the dopamine. Like, Faustino doesn't think, oh, I'm attacking the horse, ho ho. No, he plays this move so that no piece can ever re-enter this position. And in the future, he might even play h4, which makes a lot of sense. It's going to be quite difficult for black to move any pieces over here. Meanwhile, Ilan goes to the other side of the board. Bishop to b7 is incoming. Wants to put the bishop on this diagonal. I think my combined record against these two in like recent years is like 2 wins, and they're both against Ilan, and they're both in bullet chess, and like otherwise I just lose all the time to these two online. a3, obviously stopping the pawn from pushing forward. Ilan plays bishop b7. Faustino, like, couldn't even care less. I mean, at this point, I would be looking at bishop g2. Yeah, he just plays h4. Like, I mean, this is clearly some sort of modern cutting-edge stuff where you just move your g and h pawns up the board. Obviously, if you're watching this below the level of like 2000, you're like, what about the bishops? What about development? What about castling? Yeah, I know, but look at the evaluation. The computer loves it. Knight c6 played by black, looking to quickly develop the queen side. He puts the knight and the rook out. He has not committed the bishop to e7 yet. In many ways, actually, committing the bishop to e7 could be inaccurate in some of these positions. If you play bishop to e7 and try to castle, you just walk directly into the opponent's attack, frankly speaking, which is why this is played. Now Faustino takes on c6. This is actually the entire point of the opening, which is really mind-blowing. And now you need to put your queen on d4, not let the bishop develop whatsoever, and even castle long. Faustino moves the bishop there. It was better to put the queen there. He thought for 20 minutes on this move. He doesn't find the exact correct idea, but still the position is quite difficult. Bishop back to e3, and now black has to play the move rook takes c3, but Ilan is up to the task. To his credit, he does spend quite a bit of time here. He ends up sacrificing the rook, grabbing the pawn in the center of the board, and why the computer prefers this position now for black, not prefers, but prefers it to what could have happened, is that white now cannot castle. White is left with 2 rooks instead of just 1. Black, however, really ruined this pawn structure and makes it difficult for white to generate any sort of play. However, following this up is not simple. You have to now bring the bishop back, you have to put the queen on c7, you have to develop the bishop and slowly get out. This is apparently a mistake, and it now allows white to maintain a strong advantage with the incredible move pawn to a4. Just completely just chucking this pawn, a4. Faustino, though, I mean, these young guys are just monsters. Like, he totally understands that this is the point. You don't need to defend this pawn. You bring the bishop back. You ruin the queen side. You get in over here. Not, you know, right away, but b takes. Rook a4, and now for a while, Faustino just immediately going to the queen side, picking up a pawn. Meanwhile, it is, you know, Ilan trying to castle. Rook g3 played, stabilizing the position, getting out of the way of any tactics of the queen on this diagonal, preparing some h5 advance, and the position just looks fantastic. Black plays d5. 5 minutes remaining for Ilan Schneider on the clock. Not a very pleasant position. And now white is looking to convert this in the endgame. Certainly you can go checkmate somebody, but you know, with this defended, you know, black really doesn't have a huge amount of counterplay. But at the same time, if you traded the queens, you would easily win the game because you would just have a rook for a knight, and black would not have a lot of counterplay. And if this pawn was here and the queen was traded, it would just be completely easily winning because the pawns wouldn't even be doubled. So rook a7, rook to d8, king to f1. Played pretty quickly by Faustino. He also could have already gone for queen a4 and more pressure. Queen a6 he, of course, cannot play just yet because the pawn would be hanging. That, I think, is why he moved the king here. Ilan plays a very well-timed move with just 10 seconds remaining on his clock, which is pretty crazy. Almost losing on time. Well, not really, but gaining 30 seconds. Faustino now, with the time pressure situation, definitely let the advantage slip a little bit, but still, he always was just doing quite comfortably. Ilan got the knight to c4 and was looking like he was about to make a comeback, but the position is extremely difficult to play still, and he doesn't have a lot of time to make his decisions. Faustino, look at this, queen f6. The rook is hanging, but this rook is hanging, and after rook f8, beautiful move h5. Faustino, a cultured individual, definitely has seen Gotham content. Somehow it didn't poison his brain. The rook is hanging, but this is mate. And so he sacrifices the rook, and if you take this, somehow the attack worked in the end, which is pretty incredible. Ultimately, that the move played by black was e3, h6, it's mate, you play e2 check, you take, and that's the end of the game. Queen e5 is queen f7, and Ilan Schneider goes down, and Faustino wins just a thunderous game. I mean, a game where he played, you know, very interesting chess. He played this g5 h4 concept. He didn't quite navigate the position perfectly, but it really never felt like there was anything for black. Like, black got his best position just about here, and he needed to play knight to d2, king e2, e3, sacrifice the pawn, and then put the knight back on c4, and then he would be able to maybe go to g4, and there would be an open e-file, and king f1, and knight d2. Like, I don't know, man. I'm not sure this is findable. Maybe it's findable with more than a minute on the clock, but the position was already very, very challenging. And so, on that note, Faustino got started with a win. Now, when you play these tournaments, you know how many points you need in advance because they are closed tournaments. So you know, like, hey, if I score 6 points, or if I score 5.5, or if I score whatever, I'm going to get a Grandmaster dorm, right? And so it really helps when you win games early because it relieves a lot of the pressure moving forward. Faustino in the next round was playing with the black pieces against international master Tomas Darcil. Now, you know Tomas is not a prodigy because Tomas was not even given a profile picture on chess.com, which is brutal. I actually don't know. Tomas might be young, but I think Tomas is probably around 20 or 30 years old. And Faustino in this game clearly taking some liberties, playing like b5 on the second move, which is obviously very provocative. White is supposed to go for a4 in these positions. That's really all I know, and you're supposed to push the black pawn to b4, but he plays d3 and plays a King's Indian attack, which is also very reasonable. Faustino, obviously, in the early part of this tournament, was deliberately playing very, very imbalanced and provocative setups. E5 was the move chosen here by Tomas. Faustino played knight back to d7, maintaining tension, developed the pieces. But from the opening, I mean, it looked like White got what he wanted. He got the open file, semi. Then he put the knights here, controlling e5. It's looking like he's going to move the bishop. Faustino went knight c6. But it's a very, very tricky position. So White plays b3, obviously, trying to put the bishop on b2. And I have to say, from the opening, White just looks extremely comfortable. Like, everything is looking very nice. Maybe you bring the queen and then you double up the rooks, or maybe you put the rook on d1 or something. You also are always looking at this pawn break because it helps you get a knight into the middle of the board. White chooses queen d2, which makes sense. It's the move that I just said. The computer also likes knight fd2, followed by this pawn going to f4. A little bit weakening of the king, but definitely a move that is logical. You bring the knight back to d2, then you also can play a move like f4 and queen g4, threatening a mate. So queen d2, Faustino just brings his rook. Rook c8 is a move that is very difficult to explain to somebody because it literally looks like it does nothing, and yet it is one of the top computer moves of the position. Just bringing another rook and stabilizing a little bit. Maybe you have ideas in the future of bringing the bishop back to b8, and then the pawn's protected, and then the queen goes somewhere. I don't know, but queen g5. Queen g5, after 20 minutes of thought, certainly not the way to go. White is better here. White definitely has more space. Now, finding the way to improve the position for White might be a little trickier. Rook d1, like a5 is a move that removes like 4 black pieces from ever going to b6, but also this pawn could potentially be weak. You don't actually know that. It's very easy to sit there, and the computer says, oh, you have to go a5. Queen g5, actually, it's a move that removes a very important piece in Black's position, but it's not the best move. Knight to f6, played by Faustino, still trying like not to trade the pieces. The knight goes to e5, and now he kicks the queen out and plays bishop a6. It's still like Black is also kind of like desperately looking around the board, looking for a plan. Like, what is he going to do? I mean, if he takes on c4, White takes with the pawn and opens up the d file, or even takes with the knight, reopens this. It's a really tough position to play with Black, I have to say. Faustino brings the knight back. The knight removes itself from the center. It's going to f5. Bishop e4, very nice little idea, trying to, and now knight d5. Now White can make a draw here, which he doesn't go for. Make a draw is a strong statement, but I'm saying he could have repeated the position, right? We just had this position, and technically White could go back, but he definitely felt like something was trending in the wrong direction. So he tried to make a push for it here to try to beat Faustino, and he plays knight g4. Faustino should probably take the bishop, and he does, and now we will get a queen trade, but White loses his bishop pair, and Black is just better. And now Tomas has to play a blitz game against a 3,200 rated 12-year-old. Faustino was like 3,150 on chess.com. Which is insane, which is just like utterly crazy. So rook e8. Now, I don't know if they're going to get more time on the 40th move, which is a normal time control, but watch as Faustino just builds up the center. Now White has lost all control. Everything that White had going for him in the position gone. Black has the bishop pair. White has weak light squares. But now how is Faustino going to play this position? Well, he keeps avoiding trades. He keeps maneuvering. King f7, always going to be a good move in a position like this because you're just preparing for the endgame. Knight to e4, and now a very nice move, knight to d4. This pawn is weak. You cannot take it, though, because knight f3 is coming. And when you take, I take with the c pawn. And now Black has absolutely no weaknesses. And basically, the way you will win this position with Black is coordinate your pieces in a way that this avalanche breaks through. If you are not able to push those pawns, then you just won't win because there is no way forward. Otherwise, there is no way forward. You could, of course, maybe find a way to take this knight and break through, but no. Let's see. Here we go. I told you. Knight back to d2, h5. So every pawn getting a turn. Rook e2, he plays rook e6. There's the battle for the e5 square. Still, White is not losing, but certainly it feels like it's spinning out of control. And at this point with White, you're really scared because the entire avalanche of pawns is coming down. Probably it's defendable, but it's not so simple. h3, Faustino plays king g6, a waiting move. Instead, Already h4 was like almost lights out completely for black, very dangerous. So king g6 appears. He's waiting, and now white makes a break for it with 50 seconds on the clock. Actually, very well-timed move, because after this trade, suddenly Faustino has no way forward. And after rook e7 and knight e4, white has completely equalized. So Faustino actually misses his chance, right? He misses his chance. He plays rook f8. He's looking to go rook f4. White has done everything very well. Rook f1 is there to equalize, but he goes back. He goes back. And the right move here was rook f1. Like, you did a perfect job creating a blockade. He obviously didn't like that rook f4 was potentially coming. And so what he decided here was, I'm going to go knight to d2, creating a threat on e5. That was his idea. But Faustino plays rook f4 anyway, and now you don't have enough time to create counterplay against this rook, and g4 is hanging. And so what happens now is the best move is actually to put the knight exactly back to where it was, but that's simply not going to happen. In chess, there is a saying, it's not the first mistake that gets you, it is the second one. And this is just losing. This is just losing because bishop takes, rook g4, and Faustino has no intention to trade the second rook, rook f7. This is a really brutal situation because it's not even about this. It's about that. It's about the fact that the king is cut off on the f-file now by two rooks, and if you play rook takes d5, I have check and mate. And Faustino is so good at these little tricks and blitz, he will find them every single time, and that is it. One mistake, 40 moves, Faustino wins. He had a lot of pressure in this game, and just at the very end, the opponent stabilized, but it obviously felt like the game was spinning out of control. And then, yeah, that's how it goes. So, game number 3. I had to respond to a message. Game number 3. Arian Tari. And from this point forward, it's only going to be very strong and very experienced grandmasters. Tari, Norwegian number 2. You know who number 1 is. Julio Granda, one of the best grandmasters from South America, period. Now a little bit older, but still 2600. Now, against Tari, you know, the strategy for Faustino, who's very experienced, is, okay, let's see how Tari is feeling. Is he trying to play for a win with black? Okay, so Tari plays the Rogozin. Rogozin is a very aggressive Queen's Gambit declined. It's trying to go for bishop b4 ideas and so on. The problem is, if white doesn't want to play, white will just kill off the game. And that is exactly what Faustino does. Bishop g5, and he plays the most solid way. He plays bishop takes f6 and queen b3. And basically, like with black here, you have to end up trading, and that's kind of what happens. Pawn takes, pawn takes. I don't think that Arian wanted to play such a position, but from the opening, this is what we get. You know? And Faustino, you can tell from the 17-minute time advantage, he wants a GM norm, right? So you have to make some draws, and this is just a theoretical line where with best play, it is just equal. Rook c3 is not possible because you will play bishop c4, trapping the rook over here. And so we have a5, and this is our game. Nothing happened in this game because Faustino didn't let anything happen in this game. Actually, very well played. Arian obviously wanted to play. He's a very strong grandmaster. He's experienced, but he can't do anything here. Absolutely nothing. I mean, and king d5 is possible, but rook g2 is there, and rook d2, and he gets a draw. Now, Faustino will not always have such an easy time, right? And so the next opponent, Alexei Shirov, who Shirov has been at, number 2 in the world and played for World Championship, sort of, kind of. He technically was supposed to play when Kasparov ended up choosing Kramnik as an opponent, but that's a whole nother story. You can look that up, late 90s, early 2000s. Shirov, extremely experienced, and e4. e6. Shirov does not play something that allows Faustino to, get some sort of easy game, d4, d5. In the French, if white wants to try to play for a draw, white can play pawn takes, the completely symmetrical exchange French. However, even there with black, because, white is the one making the moves first, black can do something different. Faustino is like, well, in the French, I'm going to play for an advantage, right? I'm going to play for the main line. Black plays knight f5. Faustino took on c5, and black went a5 to stop white from going b4. In this game, Faustino, very positional, puts the knight on b3, And here, white can play bishop f4 and rook e1, and Faustino opted to just take on f5. He spent 17 minutes. This is one of the ways to play the position, certainly. And then you end up putting a knight on d4, and white, or grabbing this pawn, but you can also play rook e1, knight to d4, and black is just not really doing a lot, like I have to say. The bishop is nice, but these squares are difficult to get to. b4, d4 are totally off limits. This pawn's a little weak. This is doubled. I always hated this position with black, but that's probably because I'm too stupid to understand it in its entirety. Faustino, meanwhile, grabs a pawn from Shirov. He takes a pawn, and Shirov now has to prove that his position is actually decent. And yeah, Shirov wrote a book once. I don't know if he wrote it or it was written for him and it was just his game annotations, but the book is called Fire on Board. And that's because he always sets fire to the board. And this is a perfect example. Now, actually, the position is quite difficult for white. It's difficult for white to develop the bishop, number one, unless you want to go here and damage your own structure. Number two, black is always threatening an attack. Number three, black's going to get a few pieces out. Even trading the queens is not bad because the bishops provide such nasty pressure. So Faustino plays knight c5, which is a move that, feels really necessary because you need to get the bishop pair back. You need to trade your kind of bad knight for the pretty good black bishop. Although after f4, the computer just thinks black is better. Despite being a full pawn down, black is minus 0.4 to the good, which is a 1.4 swing. Think about that. Like, I'm up a pawn, but you're minus 0.4. So the difference between +1 and minus 0.4 is 1.4 points of material. So what the computer is basically saying is Faustino's position is pretty bad. It's a pretty bad position. Not easy to develop anything. Bishop d2 just loses. You lose the knight. You lose the bishop. So he ends up having to play kind of a stabilizing move. And Shirov just brings another piece. Faustino down 30 minutes on the clock. How are you going to do this against the legend? He also brings the rook. Shirov plays bishop g4. Shirov is playing like a literal computer up until this point. Down a pawn, but excellent play. Queen d7 is coming. Rook d8, rook e6, rook e8, just like improving the position. Faustino can't even get pieces off the back rank. So what's he going to do? He plays knight back to d2. It's a very, very cagey move. The idea is pretty much that in the future, you want to get to these two squares and you don't want him to take you. So you want to go to c4 or e4 and maybe d6 or f6, but you can't develop anything. It's such a difficult position here. The best move here for black, while black's pawn on b7 is also hanging, is bishop to d7. And the idea of bishop d7 is it's a pretty deep idea. The point is that if white takes the pawn on b7, well, then you just take on e5 and you cruise, you open up the position. If, however, then white plays knight to c4, that stops nothing. Knight takes e5 is still a tactical opportunity. However, after queen d5, you then trade the queen. You try to trade the queen and get a lead in development. And then if I go back to b5, you come this way with the bishop. That is the critical idea. You have to play bishop d7 and then bishop f5 and then bishop d3, bishop d7. Also, white can sacrifice the e-pawn. Shirov thought for 10 minutes here, but he went queen c7. And that one moment allows Faustino back in the game with knight e4, knight f6 check, and after this trade of pieces, h3 kicks out the knight, the bishop re-enters the game, and just in time, Faustino activates the bishop. Like, it looked like it was over here. It looked like Shirov was just putting on the pressure, but Faustino plays c4, allows the pawn to take the king, and just in time activates his bishop, clutching the defense. And now it's a draw. Like, now the position is just equal, because even though he's a pawn down, the pawn is right here. It looked like the king was under attack, but it's actually black who has some weaknesses. And give it a few more moves. Faustino confidently getting back into the game. This is a drawn rook and pawn endgame, 2 pawns each. A clutch save there from Faustino, who was under a lot of pressure. A lot of pressure. This could have gone very, very differently. But black made one inaccuracy, and Faustino roared back into the game, quickly chopped all the pieces down. And of course, c4 and bishop c3, so clutch. Just in time with the defenses. He was a step away from getting knocked out in this game. Not really, because Shirov is like 6'4" and probably 200 pounds, and Faustino is like, I don't know. I've never seen Faustino in person. I don't know if he's like a 6 foot tall 12-year-old or a 4 foot tall 12-year-old, but probably not actually knocked out. Now, the next game will actually not be very impressive, meaning like, Faustino just played in Italian, and Julio Granda played the main line, bishop b5, takes, bishop b6. This has been seen many times. But this has not been seen many times. Yeah, this position, like, black goes bishop h5 almost exclusively if you check the opening database. Bishop takes f3 just allows white to take with a pawn and get an extremely solid center. But it was clear that Julio Grande wanted this position. And this position, despite being better according to the computer, not too much there, actually, for white. Not so simple to play this position. And he kicked out Faustino's bishop, and then he went here and here. And the computer says it's +1. I don't really know where the +1 is. You might have had to, with white, move the h-pawn to h5 to prevent black from stabilizing. Doesn't really matter. Faustino just locks up the board. And now we go to the last round. And if Faustino holds a draw here, he gets his second GM norm. And the countdown to the record begins. He's playing Diego Flores. Now, I know what you're thinking. Or maybe you're not thinking this. Youngest ever GM ever. Argentina. He's playing an Argentinian. He's playing Diego Flores. Of course, Diego Flores is inclined to help him break the record. No, actually. No, not at all. Diego Flores beat him the last time that they played, and in an interview after this tournament was like, nah, I think it's important that he plays people that want to beat him. Ain't no match fixing going on here. In fact, Faustino beat Diego the previous tournament, and then Diego got revenge. And in this game, man, Diego did not play like a guy who was looking to make any sort of draw. He played a very, very combative ready, and it became kind of a neo-Catalan type of thing. He went bishop g5, you got to trade this bishop, and then you develop your queen side, rook e1, queen e2, knight e5, looking to trade the knight on c6, and apply pressure. Like, he has the active rook. The rook might land on b5. You might go b4 and c5 and knight c4, knight b3, knight e4, knight f3, bring the second rook. It's a pretty annoying position. Knight to f3. Faustino now needs to stabilize and relieve some of the pressure. He tries to do it like this, and Diego immediately finds a nice idea, pawn to b4. I might look at that and go, what pawn to b4? Well, here's the point. Pawn takes, bishop takes, right? It looks like you're just, no, then comes rook a7. Now when black plays bishop here, in comes bishop c6. And black is nearly losing. You can't take, you get forked, but I'm also threatening to take and take on f7. And if I take on f7, my knight is way better than your bishop. So Diego finding very annoying ways to put pressure on black. Faustino plays e5. Bishop to e8. I skipped a move. I said e5 because I saw that the knight was here. Plays bishop to e8, and he spends 20 minutes. He obviously missed how strong b4 is, and he has to go bishop all the way back to avoid getting taken. And he's under a lot of pressure because here comes b5, and here comes a4. Just like total domination on that side of the board. We're still looking to get the bishop there, land the knight on this square, maybe end up taking with the pawn. Of course, in the long run, the position has a chance that it will lock up and freeze. But Diego is an experienced GM. He's going to try to keep that, the tension going as long as possible. h4. Up to this point, Diego's playing a perfect game. h5 from Faustino. King h2 is a lazy move. I'm not saying it's a bad move, but bishop f3, immediately putting pressure, baiting this, and then maybe jumping in would have been better. He goes king h2, fine, knight back to f3. He is looking for the breakthrough. Faustino at this point is basically just deciding, like, I have absolutely nothing to play for. g4 here is the best move, but it damages white's structure. It's not so simple to play. He goes rook b1, rook d7, and at this point, in the time scramble, Diego decides to sack the rook, which is not a move the computer likes. He probably just thought, I don't really know how to break through this position, so g4, like, okay, I play g4, and then Faustino takes, and, like, I can't play f5, so what am I doing? Actually, this is, the computer loves this position for white. King e7, f5, it really likes how you just keep chipping away. But yeah, I can understand why he didn't go for this, because it completely doesn't make any sense. As a human, well, that's why the computer is the computer, right? Rook f7 is always a problem. Diego ended up sacrificing the rook and going like this. And this also looks pretty good for white, but no, the computer does not like it. And in this position, with 40 seconds, Diego took this pawn and offered a draw. He took this pawn and offered a draw. Now, Faustino just needs a draw to get his GM norm. So it's kind of a bailout. If Faustino did not need a draw for the GM norm, I actually think he would have kept playing. Because if you just respond pawn takes, black is better. It's not exactly straightforward how black is better, like bishop f3, bishop f5. It's not exactly clear. It's not like it's an easy win. But black has a rook, and white doesn't, right? Like, you sacked that because it was a locked position. You felt like the rooks weren't going to participate for a while. But Faustino had a chance to do something really epic. instead of a draw, win the game to clinch his GM norm. He ends up clinching it by putting pressure and surviving a pretty bad position for quite some time. So Faustino in this tournament ended up with 5.5 points, undefeated, +2, 2 wins, 7 draws, and 13 rating points gained. A very, very strong field, full of grandmasters, full of Sandro Mareco, who's a grandmaster from Argentina, Diego Flores, Cheparinov, who's Bulgarian grandmaster. Tari won the tournament, tied for first. Shirov did very well. A very good field, and Darchil and Schneider down here. Yeah, folks, the thumbnail will update every day, every single day that we have time for this young star to break the record. And if you're watching this in 2026, 2027, 2028, let me know if there's still internet, if the world hasn't fallen apart, and if Faustino broke the record, and if Faustino's record was already broken, because he has people on his tail. That's all I have for you today. Get out of here.